about synced tables because when sync tables launched in 2022, that was a really big game changer for a lot of our clients. There's always been this struggle inside of Airtable to figure out handoffs for different teams because there can be lots of different fields inside of your database. And if you have a few different teams in your organization all using a clients table and a contacts table and a projects table, it can get to be a lot because you might end up having 10, 15, 30, like maybe 80 people inside of an Airtable database, which is way too many people. And when synced tables came along, that was a huge game changer because if your sales team needs to work on their deals and the very beginning part of a project, they can do that inside of their sales database. So when Airtable launched synced databases, it allowed teams to hand off parts of their data to other teams to continue working on. For example, if your sales team tracks 100 different fields on a project or a deal, and your project operations team or project management team only needs 50 of those fields, then you have the option to just sync over the 50 fields that the project management team needs. Another benefit of sync tables is that sync tables allow you to keep your data in one place and be able to share that across different teams. So that way, if you have a list of your internal team members or a list of clients, there's always only one team maintaining that client list. Or maybe everyone is using that client list and everyone can touch that, but then nobody else can touch the sales team's processes and no one else other than marketing can touch the marketing team's processes. So there's lots of benefit to having some segregation to where your teams are working.
Thanks for investing in your own knowledge base. I'm Cherry Yang, the founder of Claribase. We're going to be releasing our flagship course, Airtable Mastery, for free. In the course, you can find over 100 videos on topics like design, integration, automations, and interfaces. It's perfect for the Airtable champion who wants to build their database right the first time. You can sign up for the course at the link down below.
I'll give a few concrete examples. The first one being the HR team that maintains a list of team members. That list of team members might contain everyone's hourly rates or annual salaries. So you definitely don't want that employee list living on your project management base or your contract fulfillment database. You want that employee base to live entirely separately outside of any operations databases and capture as much information on the team members as you want. And then a subset of that information can be synced over to your overall project base. Another place where we see a lot of segregation could be in a project management setting. So for example, one of our clients is a concert production company or concert promotions company. And because they're planning concerts and tours for different artists, they need to be able to know how much to pay those artists. One of the things that they do is have their operations and production and sales team work inside of different databases. But the accounting team by itself, who deals with all of the payments to the various parties they work with, also gets their own database. That way, the rest of the company doesn't need to know how much the accounting team actually paid the artist or actually paid their collaborators as part of this event. A third scenario that we often see is in retail companies. For example, a retail company might have a couple of databases, one for the product design phase. So there's a design team and a sampling team that creates products and works with the manufacturers to get samples and to get prototypes. That is all in one base. At the end of that design phase, they're going to have a list of products that are created and can be launched on their e-commerce website. After the products have been launched, there could be a second database for the team to work on any kind of production or custom fulfillment, shipping, order management in a completely separate database. So again, there is a very clear delineation between design and fulfillment. To set up a synced table, you want to set up a new view first. This view should be locked after you configure it. You don't want the team members on your team to be adjusting this view, hiding or showing fields that they shouldn't be touching. because it's likely getting moved over to a downstream base to another team or person that needs very different access. So you want to keep a close eye on the space in particular so that it doesn't get adjusted randomly. In my case, I'm going to hide some fields and only show the relevant ones that I need to for my, let's say, an external or internal accounting team. In my case, I'm going to reconfigure the field for actual cost from the project. We're going to roll this up from the tasks table. And after we've calculated our actual cost, we can sync this field over to our accounting base. To sync the base, click on Share View. You're going to click Create a Shareable Grid View link. Since Sync Tables is a Pro feature, I'm going to move my database back into my Pro base. You will toggle the Allow Data in this view to be synced on. And then you're going to say sync the view to another base. Next, you're going to choose which workspace and which base you want to sync the data to. You can create a new database in this step, or you can sync to an existing database. You can also update the sync timing. So usually Airtable's regular intervals is up to 15 minutes, or only sync changes when requested. We normally never set that first option up. We prefer to have the sync happen every 15 minutes. Afterwards, your accounting team is going to be able to see the synced information. However, you're not able to add records to a sync table. So that means if you need to add records, you need to go back to the original source table. Some clients find this a little bit frustrating, but most of our clients really appreciate this feature because it allows them to make sure that they have a single source of truth for their data. You wouldn't want your accounting team to be keeping a separate list of projects and your project management team to be keeping a second list of projects and your sales team to have originated a completely different set of projects. Very often in siloed teams, we see that each team is re-entering pretty much the same information every single time into their spreadsheet or into some other system that they're using. By using a sync table, you eliminate that continuous data entry and you're able to have everyone working off of the same information. Of course, for accounting, there might be different information they need to add. So for example, even though we have these projects, accounting might have to send out various different invoices for a given project. The accounting team might also have different assignees for these projects. When the projects are with the accounting team might have additional information that they want to capture. In these cases, even though accounting team can't not add new rows or new records, they can add additional columns. For example, the accounting team could have a expected revenue from the project and also a actual revenue from the project. And additionally, they could capture a date in which that invoice was paid. For example, the accounting team could add in their estimated revenue. Now, ideally, the estimated revenue is the same as the actual revenue, and the paid date would be whichever date that the company was paid on. And usually this will be a date in the past. Once again, this information is helpful because accounting might need to see their own information on the project itself. And the project management and delivery team will need to see a different set of information, and they're not concerned so much with billing. So we want to make sure that they're not getting distracted by information that they don't need to see. Now, you could also take this to a more extreme level and say, oh, well, if my project delivery team doesn't need to see any billing information, then in theory, you could have moved all of the numbers into a separate accounting base. With the introduction of synced tables, it's a good idea to double check if you still want to capture all of your information in the one database, or if there's benefit into breaking them up into multiple databases. This is another item that you can have a discussion with your team about, and it doesn't need to be entirely your decision. When we're talking about synced databases, it's often helpful to set up the database architecture and show your team what the two databases would look like, what sorts of tables they would contain, and which databases your team members will be adding information to the 2 or 3 or 4 databases that you're going to set up. But certainly, if you are just starting with Airtable and building your first database ever, I would recommend sticking with trying to put everything in one base for now, unless a synced base is absolutely necessary. If you want to talk about your specific situation with synced bases, you're also welcome to look into our consulting hours. It doesn't have to be with us. I think lots of consultants out there are going to help you with that strategic piece and seeing where the synced databases will fit in. So that's another option for you to talk to someone who is an expert in Airtable to set this up correctly. Sync tables are very easy to set up, and they can add a lot of value to your organization. The 2 most important things to keep in mind is that 1, they provide a single source of truth for your data. You don't want your team to be entering the same type of information 3 different times if your 3 different teams are working inside of Airtable. The second reason for setting up sync tables is so you can hand off data to another team without overwhelming them with every single thing that is attached to a particular type of record. It's going to help everyone with their workflows declutter the working database and help people focus and not get distracted by everyone else's information. Hopefully, this has inspired you to incorporate some synced views into your workflows. Once again, it's very important to be strategic when you're setting up synced tables, so make sure you think and talk it through with your team first.